masked predator lurking in the darkness, his victims, young lovers caught in his web. He did not just kill, he hunted. Their screams echoed through the empty back roads swallowed by the night. In 1946, the small town of Texarkana became a killing ground. The residents called him the Phantom, but the truth is, he was a monster. The Texarkana Moonlight Murders were brutal, methodical, and unspeakably sadistic. Bodies mutilated, faces shattered by bullets, lives ripped apart in the most horrifying ways imaginable. And worst of all, the killer was never caught. The first attack, February 22, 1946. The terror began on a secluded stretch of road where young couples whispered secrets under the glow of the moon. Jimmy Hollis and Mary Jean Larry thought they were alone. They were wrong. A beam of light cut through the darkness, a flashlight, blinding them. Behind it, a man wearing a crude white mask, his breath rasping beneath the cloth. He dragged Jimmy out first, ordering him to remove his pants. Jimmy hesitated, confused. The Phantom didn't wait. He lifted his gun and slammed it into Jimmy's skull. Once, twice, then again, until the bone gave way with a sickening crack. His skull split like an eggshell, blood leaking onto the dirt. Mary Jean could only watch in horror as her boyfriend collapsed, his head caved in like shattered glass. But the Phantom wasn't done. He turned his attention to her, forcing her into the woods at gunpoint. She begged for her life. He didn't care. The gun pressed against her skin, not to shoot but to degrade her. He violated her with the cold steel of the barrel, savoring her terror before letting her flee. Bruised, bleeding, and barely alive, she ran until she found help. But Jimmy? He lay motionless, his skull fragments glistening in the moonlight. And the Phantom, he vanished into the shadows, his mask soaked in blood. The first murders, March 24, 1946. The next victims never saw him coming. Richard Griffin and Polly Ann Moore, sitting in their car, lost in each other's arms. They had no idea that the last thing they would ever see was the gleam of a .32 caliber pistol. Richard was executed first, 2 shots to the back of the head. No warning, no hesitation. Polly Ann wasn't as lucky. The Phantom pulled her from the car, forcing her onto the cold earth. She was brutalized, her body left exposed to the elements. And then the gun was pressed to her skull. The shot rang out, her lifeless body slumping to the ground, her blood soaking into the dirt. By the time police arrived, rigor mortis had twisted her limbs, her eyes frozen wide in terror. The bloodbath, April 14, 1946. Paul Martin and Betty Jo Booker spent their last night alive together, unaware they were being stalked. The Phantom was patient, lurking just beyond the light, his pulse steady as he watched them move through the darkness. Paul was found first. His body lay crumpled in the dirt, bullet holes riddling his flesh. He had been shot 4 times, his face contorted in agony, fingers frozen mid-clench. But it was Betty Jo's fate that was worse. Her body was found miles away, twisted and abandoned. She fought him. She ran. The Phantom chased her through the woods, his boots crunching against the dead leaves. She screamed once, maybe twice, before he fired. 1 shot to the chest. She fell. She wasn't dead yet. He approached, watching the life drain from her eyes. And then, as if savoring the moment, he fired again. Her saxophone, which she had played just hours before, was missing, taken as a trophy, a souvenir of her suffering. The final slaughter, May 3, 1946. Virgil Starks sat in his home reading the newspaper, oblivious to the death that lurked just outside his window. He didn't hear the Phantom's footsteps in the grass. He didn't see the gun barrel lift. The only warning he got was the explosion of his own skull. 2 shots, straight to the back of the head. Blood sprayed across the walls, dripping down like melting wax. Virgil slumped forward, his life snuffed out in an instant. His wife, Katie, heard the noise. She rushed in and saw the horror. Virgil's brains leaking from the wounds, his mouth locked in a final frozen gasp. Then another shot tore through her cheek. The bullet ripped through her mouth, shattering her teeth, tearing out the flesh behind her ear. She ran, blood gushing from her ruined face. The Phantom followed, his boots echoing on the wooden floor. Katie barely made it outside, her screams piercing the night as she fled to safety. The Phantom disappeared once again. Theories in the Phantom's legacy. Yoel Swinney was arrested. His wife claimed he was the phantom, but the evidence was thin. The case collapsed, and Texarkana was left without justice, without closure, without a face to pin the horrors on. Some believe the phantom moved on, his thirst for blood unquenched. Others think he evolved, changed his hunting grounds, refined his methods. Look at the Zodiac killer. The similarities are chilling. The mask, the taunting, the unsolved horror. Could the phantom have been the Zodiac before he became infamous? Could he have stalked other towns, leaving behind victims that no one ever linked to him? One thing is certain, the phantom was never caught. His crime still cast a shadow over Texarkana, and his ghost lingers in the whispers of the trees. Perhaps he never left at all. Conclusion. The Texarkana Moonlight Murders remain one of the most gruesome and disturbing unsolved cases in American history. A town lived in fear, watching the darkness for a face they never truly saw. The phantom became the night, and the night still belongs to him. Sleep well, and remember he was never caught. He could still be out there watching, waiting,